We're here in the 305, and the title at 145 pounds in the UFC will be disputed this Saturday as Diego Lopes takes on former champion Alexander Volkanovski in the main event of UFC 314. Hello, my name is Danny Segura. I'm here with Mike Bohn, and welcome to the preview show for UFC 314 here at MMA Junkie. Very sunny out here.
It is. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have the shades, so I might look mad or pissed, but I am not. I'm just trying to survive this sun, this Miami heat. Mike, first of all, how are you? And how excited are you for this card? Because it feels like the fan base has really gotten behind this card. Mm-hmm. It almost feels like the best card of the year, or for a year that's been relatively kind of boring for the UFC, maybe?
Yeah, kind of ho-hum. I mean, the last one that has any energy like this to me was the January card, UFC 311 with Islam and Umar and all them. But yeah, it's great to be here, man. Never been to a Miami event before, only been here once when I was like 10 years old with my family. So yeah, enjoying the sun. And we just finished official weigh-ins. All the prominent fighters made weight. Only one prelim fighter, Nora Cornoli, missed in the opening fight of the night. So yeah, all the big fights we want to see. Here we go.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's a great card, and it's got a nice theme of featherweights going on.
Absolutely.
We'll get into some key featherweight bouts, but let's start with the main event. Obviously, the vacant title will be disputed between Diego Lopes and Alexander Volkanovski, as I said. It's a big fight, but is it the right fight? Because there's so many contenders at 145 pounds, and I feel like Masvidal keeps just getting screwed, but at the same time, we do have the bigger fight here on Saturday, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think this really goes to show, like, what modern UFC life is kind of like, right? Like, Mobsar beat Diego, but he's had only a couple fights since then, all decisions. Diego goes out there, he's the active guy, he's finishing people, and he's fighting consistently, and that's what the UFC loves. So, I mean, you could probably speak better to it, like this market. Diego definitely feels like a better fit than Mobsar would be. So, yeah, I do think ultimately now that we're here, it was the right fight to make. We've seen the energy at the press conference and all that stuff. This is a great matchup to make for the title.
And this is such an interesting fight because Volkanovski's coming off being finished in his last two fights.
Yeah.
I don't know, and you're the stats guy, so you let me know. Has there ever been someone that's been finished back-to-back and then won a title in his following fight?
So Randy Couture did it once, but he won an interim title, so it doesn't necessarily count. But yeah, there's been 7 fighters. Volkanovski will be the 7th, who has come into a title fight off back-to-back losses in the UFC, and they are 1-5 previously. And then if you want to just take it like a step back more, fighters just coming into a title fight off a loss period, 21, 40, and 1. So, like, this is an uphill climb. Then you got the 35 or older curse, like, for these title fights below 155. So it's an uphill climb for Mr. Bulk here.
There's a lot of bad stuff overlapping for him. And also another thing that I'd like to point out, and I mentioned this to Diego at Media Day, he might be the hometown guy here. He doesn't live in Miami. He's not from here. But he is Brazilian-born, lives in Mexico and reps Mexico. And, I mean, tons of Brazilians and Latin Americans here. So he is like the Latin American guy. So he might even have the crowd, rooting for him. And there might be an enemy territory factor going into this fight for Volkanovski. And I feel like people are not talking about this enough because everyone's so focused on the fight. But I feel like this is maybe not a legacy-defining fight for Volkanovski because his legacy's set. But if you want to times 10 it, you win this fight, and I think we're talking about the greatest of all time at featherweight. I mean, Jose Aldo lost the belt, couldn't get it back. If Volkanovski's able to do this against a young guy like Diego, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, and something I've kind of been pondering. Like, Aldo technically was a 2-time champ, but his whole thing was weird, right? Like, he won the interim title, he got promoted, then he lost badly to Max Holloway right away, twice in a row. So,
also,
like,
against the guy he already beat in Frankie Edgar.
Exactly, yeah. So it didn't really have that thing like this. Obviously, like, and at the time it was an interim title when he got upgraded. This would be the only time someone has won an undisputed title twice at featherweight. So that would be a huge thing for Volkanovski. And I think he knows it, right? Like, he's said all week, like, this is one of the biggest fights, maybe the biggest fight of my career, and maybe you wouldn't think it that way, like looking at just the name, but like you add in all these things we just talked about for the past few minutes, and if he wins, it would be one I think like that stamps the legacy for sure.
Yeah, I think it stamps the legacy, and if you were to defend it one more time, because it looks like he wants to stick around for a while, I think there's no argument. It's locked. He's the greatest featherweight of all time. And I got to ask you this. He keeps talking about being a reign. It's not a one fighter solely focused on this fight. He's already looking ahead and even saying, like, look, if I win and Ilia Topuria wants to come back down, we can dance again. But do you think maybe that's just kind of to distract us, and do you think there's a chance maybe, win or lose, that Volkanovski calls it quits on Saturday?
Lose, maybe. I can't see him doing that without on a win, just because we know the upside of being the champion in the UFC, the paydays, all that. Even to just go into one more after that and say he loses and calls it quits, like the money he would make from that, I think would be worthwhile. So yeah, I do think that'll be the case. But let me ask you a question about this. If it goes the other way and Diego Lopes wins, do you think that's the better result for the featherweight division? Because there's no parallel. Like you look at Volk and we're gonna be like, we just saw this dude get KO'd by Ilya a year ago. If Diego wins, there's no correlation between those two.
Yeah. I think this is house money. I think either way it goes, the UFC's winning. Mm-hmm. They're winning in different areas, but they're winning. I don't think there is a bad result here for the promotion of the featherweight division. Volkanovski wins. You can make that rematch with Ilya Topuria, all of a sudden is very enticing. Also, he just has so much history in the division. And finally, there's a new crop of featherweights like Evloev, Leron Murphy. So there's new fights. It wouldn't be boring, right, if he were to become champion. And again, you have a champion for the Oceania region that right now it's lacking with Izzy losing the belt.
Yep.
But if you win with Diego Lopes, it's a guy that you can plug in anywhere. He's an international star, right? Like if you want to headline in Mexico, he can easily do that. If you want to headline in Brazil, he can easily do that. If you want to headline in the States, he can easily do that. He's been speaking English great all week as well. So I think there's no losing here with either result.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And as I'm sure we'll get into, you mentioned headlining in Mexico.
Yeah.
I think we saw a potential preview of that at the press conference, but we can get to that.
Yeah. I want to ask you now about Diego Lopes, and then we'll get into the official pick. What do you make of him? Because I feel like sometimes I'm maybe too close to the action because I've been following him even prior to his UFC run. So it's like I feel like he's going to get it done, and I feel like he's this massive star, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm too close in the circle, too much in the bubble. How do you perceive Diego Lopes, and do you feel like this is a key player for the UFC? Because I feel like if he wins, he's already a massive star just like, 2 years into his UFC career?
Yeah. No, it would be good. It's so hard to say. I mean, I think he definitely has a good shot here, and like he is super dangerous, as we know early on, and that's going to be the big question, right? Like Volk needs to be extremely cautious for the first 7-8 minutes of this fight. But if Diego's still dangerous 13, 14 minutes in, then you're like, oh crap, this guy is a real problem. But we know Volk knows how to go 25 minutes. Like he can pace himself for that really well. So I suspect, but you don't also want to like overpace yourself, right? And like, then you get caught and you're knocked out in the first few minutes. So that's going to be fascinating to see how that ultimately goes. But yeah, Volk needs to be very careful. But I think Diego absolutely capable of winning this fight. Submission, knockout. He's way bigger than Volk. But yeah, like you wrote some stories on it, like his cardio. We just don't know because we haven't seen it.
We don't know. Yeah. All right, let's get into the prediction. Who you got for the main event?
I'm going to go with Diego. All the things I'd love for Volk to prove me wrong, but like all these things we just laid out, there's like 20 curses on this man. We don't know where his chin is at. Like it's too many question marks. But if he wins, I think it would be like an awesome moment for us, for the sport and everything. But I just can't bring myself to see him overcoming all these. Yeah. What do you think?
I agree with you. I just can't see somebody being finished back-to-back, win a UFC title, undisputed title. Yeah. I just think it's Diego Lopes' time right now. He looks like a killer. And he's dangerous everywhere, right? Like something we've seen about Volkanovski is like, okay, fighting Yair Rodriguez, let me wrestle him because he's dangerous. Fighting Brian Ortega, let me keep it on the feet. Although it did go to the ground, but for the most part, he pieced him up. With Diego Lopes, where are you going? Where do you go? The ground? That seems like a bad idea. Standing? That seems
Hold
like
him against the fence? I don't know.
So I'm going to go with Diego Lopes. But I do think the more sophisticated and the more strategic fighter is Volkanovski. So if this goes to decision, maybe there's a chance there. But I just think Diego Lopes is too dangerous.
Yeah, I think Volkanovski could snatch 3 rounds and win a decision.
Also, lastly, before we switch into the co-main, a lot has been said about Diego Lopes' hair. Volkanovski has been making fun of him. I asked him in Spanish. I'm like, do you think he's jealous? And he's like, yeah, he's got no hair. If you had to pick the mullet with the side, we're all bald, what are you going for?
I think I would go with the mullet to the side. I rocked the bald look for many years in like high school and stuff, and like now, my fiance is like, you got the hair, you got to use it while you still can, because once it's gone, it's gone.
It's gone. Also, too many bald people in MMA, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You need to rep the hair. We got going on well here. So
we're getting
make fun of our cameraman behind the camera
here. So, yeah, I tend to agree. I'll go with the hair. All right, let's switch now to the co-main event. This was also a very interesting one, and I feel like this is, in terms of stakes, is the opposite of what's happening in the main event, where everything's to gain, right? Like if Volkanovski loses, he's still Volkanovski. His legacy is set. If Diego Lopes loses, he's still like a top contender.
Sure, he's young. Yeah, he can make another run.
Super exciting fighter. Like his stock doesn't really go down. But I feel like in this co-main event, it's not about winning. It's about not losing.
That is fair.
If Chandler loses, he's done as a title contender, right? Like 100%.
Yeah.
If Paddy loses, the hype train gets derailed, and I mean, if you can't get past Chandler, good luck against any other top 5 guys.
Yes.
Do you agree with that? It's like loser leaves town type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously not leaves town. Like, these guys
Right.
are going to have a roster spot for however long they want, I imagine. But yeah, in terms of like their ceiling, it's going to have some serious reevaluations. You know, and like Michael Chandler, I know you asked him a totally fair question at media day where he was like, what happens if you kind of lose? Where does that put you? And of course, you know, he's Mr. Positivity, so like he's not really going to embrace that. But it is a real thing, man. Like, and there's the question I think you may have asked as well, like, is this a step up for Paddy or a step down for Chandler, right? And I think that's what we're going to find out. But Chandler, I think he needs this one more, in my opinion, just because there's been like so much around him. He's the older guy, all that. But I guess I'll qualify this too. Like, it depends how they lose, right? Like, if Paddy gets starched in the first 2 minutes, you're gonna be like, okay, this guy was all hype. If Chandler, gets submitted in the first round, then that would be a bad look. But if we get like a 5-round war, 5 rounds, not 3 rounds, remember, and I think that could raise the stock of both guys. There is a scenario, but yeah, it's you don't want to lose this one. I think Dustin Poirier, who's working the analyst desk, said that exact thing. Like, Chandler can't afford to lose. Yeah, no,
it's a very tough one. And I also got to ask you, because I feel like I've mentioned this in Spanish on my Spanish YouTube channel, and in English as well, on Spinning Backlick on Monday. And then they started the hashtag Danny be tripping on the chat. I don't think it's crazy to think, more for Paddy than Chandler, obviously, but I don't think it's crazy to think if Paddy wins this, he could get a title shot. I don't think it's crazy.
Yeah, I could potentially see it. It's so tough to say. There's like a growing queue right now, right? So it depends, I guess, how.
But it's a queue of Gagey was coming off one of the worst knockouts ever, and bounces back against a Fasiv who hadn't fought in a while, right?
Sure.
And had already beat him. Sarukian, he doesn't seem to be in the good side with the UFC right now. He's not getting a shot. Oliveira just fought Chandler, so Paddy could say, hey, I fought him.
Especially if he finishes him.
Especially if he finishes him.
Yep.
And then Topuria, it seems like Makhachev's not too interested to throw down with a 45er right now. So given the big, and he's a big name, Pimblett.
I think that, just you saying that, I think the dream scenario for the UFC, Islam goes to welterweight, chases that belt. It's either interim and undisputed, and then you do Topuria versus Paddy for the belt, and there you go. That's that's your situation, and it's a huge fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he'd be in the mix. Again, he needs to be like pretty impressive to do that, but we know he's got the promotional favor on his side. But I do think if it's not the title shot, like, there's something cooking with him and Arman all week. Like, you can fight a Dan Hooker. He will fight one of these guys. He's 1 win away at worst.
Yeah. I would have to agree. Let's talk about Paddy Pimblett and transition that into the prediction. Is it hype? I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'll lay out my cards. I like Paddy Pimblett. I like what he brings to the table. I think he's a good fighter. But I can put so many asterisks in those wins, right? The Jared Gordon win, was it a win?
Yes.
Right? The Bobby Green fight, Bobby Green shot for a takedown. What else am I missing? Ferguson, he gassed.
Yeah, the competition hasn't been like great. There's been some weird spots. I tend to we'll find out. This will be the one we'll know. And he seems like a kind of guy who will fight to the level of his competition to a degree. So I think we could see a little bit of that here. And Chandler is, on paper, still the big step up for him. So I've been fairly impressed with Paddy. We just need to see in this one what he can do. But go read, our fight analyst Dan Tom, his prediction. He's predicting Chandler by epic first-round knockout because he thinks Paddy is just that defensively flawed. And I'm seeing the clips going around of when he was fighting Ferguson, he boxed out of the pocket, his hands are down. People are like, Michael Chandler with his explosive style will catch him with that. So you would hope he shored that stuff up in preparation. But yeah, there feels like you said, it could be a massive downfall if he gets bombed out in round 1.
You do got to keep in mind that Paddy's a sorcerer, so it's hard to knock out.
Exactly, yeah. The sorcerer is not the scouser. Yeah. So, we'll see. This one is really hard for me to pick, honestly, especially with the 5 rounds.
Look, I'm going to go and pick the underdog, Chandler. I think it's insane that he's an underdog. The dude has lost by a minimal margin to all the top guys. Poirier, Gagey, Oliveira. A lot of people are saying Paddy sub. Oliveira couldn't get it done, I think this is the odds makers are crazy here. I'm gonna go with Chandler, and I don't know if it's a first round knockout like Dan Thomas predicting, but I think it's gonna be pretty damn dominant.
Yeah, I'll split. I'll go with Paddy here, and this is all due respect to Michael Chandler, but I've seen all his UFC fights, and I'm not gonna sit here and say there isn't a fight Michael Chandler can't lose with his wild fight IQ style and just throwing all things out the window. So if he sticks to the plan and his best of his ability, he can do this. But if he just gets in there and becomes Michael Chandler with the crowd, definitely could go against him.
Yeah. All right, let's return back to the featherweight division. We'll see another former Bellator champion, Patricio Pitbull, make his debut. Are you still kind of pinching yourself? I'm still kind of, I've covered this guy for a while.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of tripping out to see the UFC logo, banners behind him and stuff.
It is cool. I mean, it's all there. We've seen it all except for the gloves in the cage.
Yeah.
He's made weight. He's at the press conference. He's done the stare down. So, yeah, he feels right at home here, and, he's fit right in my opinion. So, yeah, like this is a super compelling fight with him and Yair.
Yeah.
Where's Yair's mind at after everything we saw at the press conference? But, yeah, like, Pitbull's been in the game a long time. You wonder if those wars, I know he kind of dismissed it when I asked him about it at media day, but like he has had a lot of 5-round fights. Like maybe they weren't the most damage heavy, but just that much cage time. Yeah. Like, you know how it goes. So we'll see what he can do. I hope it's not too late.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out. I think this is a title eliminator in my opinion. I know Yair's coming off a loss or 2 defeats. But if Diego were to win, I mean, we saw what happened at the presser. How do you not make that in Mexico, right? If Volkanovski wins, then it gets a little tricky, right? But if Patricio wins, I think he's either fighting Volkanovski or Diego, whoever the winner of that is.
I mean, like, obviously the rightful #1 contender is Movsar, who we talked about, but, like, he's opened the door so wide for anyone to just step right through it in front of him because he's not finished anyone in 9 UFC fights. Like, it just is what it is, and he's not had the traction of a personality. So, yeah, I think any combination, like Volkanovski wins, I think the only bad combination would be if Volk wins and Yair wins, because there's no momentum behind that rematch. But basically any other combination, Diego, Yair, Volk, and all these ones, Pitbull, Pitbull's going to bring up that $1 million bet again if they both win. So there is storylines here. So I don't think it's like a guarantee, but
it's like an 85% time.
Yeah, there's a lot of good paths here.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get into the prediction. Who wins this one? How do you see it?
I'm going to go Pitbull by decision. Ooh. I think he's able to take 2 of these 3 rounds. A guy, he's fought so many 5-rounders, like a 3-rounder's a layup for him. He probably loves that. He can change his pace. And I think Yair maybe will have a little bit of a tough time with that. I mean, but dude, that dude can pop off at any moment. He could do some crazy stuff off the cage, off, wherever. And, Pitbull could be on the ground unconscious just like that.
I was going to go with your pick with Patricio, but Bahamondes was pretty clear in Mexico. Like, dude, Yair has been training wrestling nonstop. You go in his social media, he has. The guy said he's a new version. I believe him. Yeah. And I feel like that's all what he's been missing, wrestling. If he is able to tick that box, I think the sky's the limit for him. So I'm going to go with Yair, but very, very tough fight.
I like that we're splitting it, though. This is good for the show.
Yeah, except for the main, no?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so real quick, John Silva versus Bryce Mitchell. What a weird fight. What a weird build-up, man.
Two weird people as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what more can you say? The Bryce Mitchell stuff has led us to here, and we're finally going to see either, John Silva's going to make him pay for those comments, and the world, a lot of people in this world, not speaking for all of you because I know there's Bryce Mitchell supporters out there, but they're going to get what they want to see. Or Bryce Mitchell, who I do think has a very real chance of winning this fight, goes in there and he's going to get a mic coming off this big win and try to make everyone forget the things that come out of his mouth with his fighting skills. I guess that's the best thing you can do here if you're him.
What are we going to hear in the post-fight interview in cage? A prayer or a bark?
Oh, man. I'm going to say a bark. But I do think Bryce can get this submission if he gets... We don't know Jean, but Drew, bigger guys have had trouble taking him down. So we'll see. But, yeah, I really don't know. It's going to be chaos. I know that much.
Yeah, that fight's going to be insane. The walkout's going to be insane from both parties. I can't wait. It's going to be a very interesting fight. Yeah. All right, those were the main fights. That's not the entirety of the main card, but pretty much those were the main fights that we're analyzing. Just real quick, any fight that you would want to...
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a treat. Jim Miller. I know, we've seen him so many times, but he has had the longest media
Plus
day of the
700
year.
Underdog, by the way. Yeah. That is insane.
It is crazy. I
insane.
Totally agree with that. That's outrageous for Chase Hooper as his opponent. But, yeah, I mean, this guy, he's on the path to 50, so anytime we get to see him fight, it's cool. He's raising the bar. We might see the wins record extended, submission record, all these things where he's hanging up there. So it's just what more can Jim Miller do? And appreciate him while he's still here because we might not ever get someone like this guy again.
He made weight. How many times in a row without missing weight?
Every single time. Never missed weight.
How many fights is
so 46 and
Jesus
more
Christ.
than that, I think 48 because he's had 2 canceled fights after weigh-ins. So there you go.
Brutal. I'm going to stick with 145. Woodson versus Dan Ige. I think that's a fantastic fight. Woodson's a weird 45. He's 6'1" or something like that. He's crazy.
Weird body frame.
Crazy frame, and I do feel like the guy is is not talked about enough, and I do feel like he's going to be part of that wave of Lerone Murphy, Evliv, all these new names that are coming up and kind of washing out the Ortegas, the Holloways, etc.
I'd love to see Danny get the win, though, just because like he did
Sure.
that huge step up against Lopes, and then freaking now we could be looking at 3 losses in a row. So
Yeah, that one's going to be a tough one. All right, guys. Well, appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure to check out MMA Junkie for all your coverage. We got you covered. And enjoy the fights on Saturday.
Let's go.
Adios.